Let's give a warm round of applause for Dr. Thomas Jones. Dr. Thomas Jones, I'd like to turn this portion of the program over to you here.
Thank you. Thank you. And we've had Chance out at Cherokee Nation hosting a conference of community leaders once, and so I've got to meet him before. And he's right about the spending the per diem. My mom used to do is she'd go to Walmart day one and just take it home too. So Tommy Jones from Jones, Oklahoma. I live in Colorado now. Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma on my father's side, Naknek Native Village from my mother's side. She's from Alaska. And again, they didn't. My mom was brought down to Oklahoma. That's how they met. I'm with the Office of Indian Energy, and we were expecting to have Lizana Pierce here as well. She wasn't able to make it. She hurt her hand, but she really wanted to be here. And thank you to Native Learning Center for hosting this. What an awesome place to come for work is Florida. And so I enjoy being out here. I bring my family. I'm really thankful to be a part of this. And this is growing. This is the biggest group yet, it looks like. And thank you all for being here. I wanted to, before I begin, really, there's a couple other folks from the Office of Indian Energy. We have Mike Stevenson back here, and then Bobby is back here too. And so we have a couple more folks from our office. Mike is our lead technical assistant. Oh, and there's Mike Vihar back here too. He's a project officer. And so these folks, along with myself, can answer any kind of questions, or we'll find the answer for you for the office. So our office was created under the Indian Tribal Energy Development and Self-Determination Act of 2005. And the purpose was to provide, direct, foster, coordinate, and implement energy planning, education, management, conservation, and deliver programs that promote Indian tribal energy development, efficiency and use, reduce or stabilize energy costs, enhance and strengthen Indian tribal energy and economic infrastructure, and bring electrical power and service to homes, Indian and land and homes. And so I'm going to go into a few ways of how we do this in a little bit. Our director is Wahala Johns, Danae from Northern Arizona, David Conrad, Osage Nation, and Lizana Pierce is our deployment supervisor. And she's been with the office since the very beginning, and we've been really thankful for her leadership getting us here. And so it's sad that she's not here to be with us today, but she's safe back home. So our team has grown significantly over the last few years, along with our budget. And so I think that we've probably about quadrupled in the last 2 years. And so it's really exciting to have more voices coming in, more things. And the way I say with our budget and with our team, with more money, we're doing more problem solving. And so it's really been exciting. I started with the program in 2014 as an intern during my PhD, became a federal contractor and now a Fed. And so it's really cool to see the program grow, because there's times in my childhood I was without electricity, things like that. And I know how much some things can make life-changing difference in people's daily lives, like staying warm at night. And so our program focuses on really 3 different prongs here, and it's financial assistance, technical assistance, and education and capacity building. And so I'll go into each of those a little bit. First, with financial assistance, our office was really set up in the way that in its current form since 2010. That's when we became a standalone office. And since then, we've had 18 funding opportunities. We're working on 19 now. And we've accepted nearly 690 applications that, with those projects, if all were fully funded, would have been over $700 million. But we are funding about 32% of all applications received, which is significantly higher than other offices at DOE, which are about 5 to 10%. And so we are putting out more funding opportunities every year now, too. And so between this time frame of 2010 to 22, our office was able to invest $120 million in over 200 tribal energy projects across the lower 48 and Alaska. And these just those amounts there with the combined cost shares from the tribes, it's over 46 megawatts of new energy generation, over 8,000 tribal buildings impacted. Just for these particular projects, over $315 million saved for the lifetime. I think it's probably about $14 million a year that tribes are saving And so every dollar that we put in to a grant, we're seeing $3.38 saved in the tribal communities. And our office has seen, like I mentioned, significant growth in our funding. You can see over the last 10 years, it's been average about $10.2 million a year that we've been able to get out the door. In 2023, we were able to get $75 million out. And so our budget has gone up significantly. Although our budget right now is about $75 million total. And so, you know, with more of these projects, more funding, we're able to get more funding opportunities out there. So some of what happened in 2023, there was also a TCU grant that added to the total here. But looking at different types of clean energy deployment, energy efficiency, those types of things are typically in our funding announcements. When you look at investments by technology and state, we see the states with the most amount of tribes, with the most representation here. But it is across the nation that we're seeing things. And most things are renewable. Some of the investments by technology and stuff like you can think like it's based off of what the funding opportunity was supporting. But we have different things, like conventional energy is important in Alaska for like diesel generator backups and things like that. But a lot of microgrids, things like that are starting to become more popular. And we always want to be responsive to the realities in Indian country. And so whatever type of technology or types of projects you're thinking about, we want to hear about so that we can maybe have a webinar about it or bring in some folks from the National Lab so we can understand it better when we're working with tribes on these issues. So I'm going to go through some of the success stories of projects that we've helped fund, one of which will be talked about later, which I won't mention now. But these are typical of a lot of the type of projects that we fund. So Winnebago Tribe, 23 kilowatt solar system. This was from 2016. And you can just kind of see DOE share, awardee cost share, and then the total value of the project. This particular size of project would probably be more expensive now, I'm not sure, or less, I'm not sure. Our technical assistance person would be great to talk about that. But 1 megawatt solar is a larger project, a little more community-based. So depending on the community's needs is the type of project scaling that we see. And then San Javier in Arizona. And so solar is really popular. A lot of folks think about doing solar in their communities. It's easy, it's less invasive than a lot of other things, but it's really good to remember energy efficiency when you're going down that path. Some of the larger projects that we've helped support was a community scale solar system for Ahamakav in Arizona. This total cost was $4 million for this project, and DOE put in $3 million to the tribe's $1 million. And what's changed in our office in the last couple years is that we were previously required to have a 50% cost share. We've been able to have that cost share reduced down to 20%, but down to 10% based on community demographics, which most tribes are going to get down to 10%. And so we're reevaluating what our cost share looks like. We're still trying to work with other federal agencies on President Biden's executive order that he signed at the White House Tribal Nations Summit to help streamline grant application processes for tribes. And so we're working with other offices to really see how we can benefit communities. And usually when we do something, we'll send it out to tribal feedback before we make a final decision. And that includes the DOE policy and order on how DOE interacts with tribes altogether. We like to make sure that we're getting tribal feedback on everything that we're doing. So this was more solar and wind projects. We do see those every once in a while in Alaska. There's been some, and this is in New York as well. The one in New York was an interesting situation. They had a virtual utility, and so they put this wind turbine onto the grid, and then they handled the billing for all the tribal members. So they didn't own poles and wires. They just took over the billing so that they could use tax credits from the wind turbine to lower everyone's bills. And so that's kind of, there's different on-ramps for having a utility. You can start out like this, or you can start out with poles and wires, and there's a lot of different steps to it. But if you want to just get started, I would recommend talking to someone from Seneca about seeing what options they had. In Alaska, again, this is a 900 kilowatt wind turbine. In Alaska, there's, for folks who aren't familiar with Alaska, the energy situation is quite a bit different. The cost of electricity, the highest that I saw it go about a year and a half ago, I think was $1.77 a kilowatt hour. Out here, it's probably 20 cents. And so you can think of whatever your bill was, like if it was $100 at 20 cents a kilowatt hour, they're going to be paying like $600 or $700 for the same amount of electricity, if they have the amount of electricity available to use that. And so the reason why for a lot of that is there's barging of fuel, they're flying in of fuel, and they're using diesel generators in these rural communities. And so something like this wind turbine makes a huge impact. And so it's going to help generate energy for about 2,900 tribal buildings in the area and save over $1 million in diesel fuel costs per year. And so this will reduce costs for this community about $18 million over 20 years. And so you see really big impact for small scale projects in some of these communities. So more tribal successes. There's different types. This highlights different types of technologies that are being used. And so there's we see a lot of battery storage, things like that. And so when looking, if you're considering doing something like this, you can look for our office funding opportunities. We have a notice of intent out right now, which I'll talk about soon, but it's generally, if you look at our past funding opportunities, you can get an idea of what kind of things that we'll fund in the future. Some more microgrid related things. So solar, battery system. We're seeing more of this, hopefully seeing this coming up, a few more of these types of projects here in the near future. But again, there's no one thing that you can apply to for our office. There's things we want to really support your visions, and so again, if there's new technologies that are coming out, we want to understand really what you're interested in to meet your needs. We also provide technical assistance, and again, our technical assistance lead is in the room. And the goal of this is to address a challenge or fulfill a need that is essential to deliver a tangible product or specific deliverable. And so this is free. You just you go onto our website and request the technical assistance. It's first come, first serve. It's not a competitive application process. And how that process works is you send an email. We see what you're talking about. We give you a call so that we make sure that we know exactly what your need is, and then we figure out from there how to best approach your request. And we've done over 400 of these since 2010, and so we have seen a lot of different types of requests out there. And this includes strategic energy planning. And so if you're not ready to begin with a project, we can also provide support on getting your community together to think about the vision that you want going forward and to start organizing towards that. And again, on our website, you can just go in and request it. We have different types of assistance available, and since we have access to the national labs and things like that, and so please do consider us for technical assistance. Another thing, education and capacity building. Some of it's like coming out to conferences and things like this. But we also have resources on our website, education, curriculum for tribal leaders and things like that to better understand the energy picture. We also occasionally do workshops and have webinars. And so the webinar is the third Wednesday of every month, I believe. And we get a wide variety of different topics on there. If something's coming up that's big, like there's some sort of tax thing related to tribal energy development, we want to have someone on there talking about it so that we learn, and that we're able to talk about it. But these webinars are always saved and put on our website. And so there's years worth of education available now. We also have something called the Tribal Energy Atlas. it's a good first step to just go into and just play around. It's kind of like a Google Earth application, and you can see what types of transmission, railroads, the energy resource potential in your area, and it's a good way to get like an understanding of your general area. Listening sessions, we occasionally will put on listening sessions for our office related to things that we're required to do, but we also support other offices. A lot of offices around the DOE spectrum have historically not worked with tribes. And so these have been national programs that people go to them. And now these national programs need to do outreach to tribes. And so there's a learning curve. And so our office has been helping offices all around DOE to really build the best partner that we can. I know that Office of Indian Energy is really the front door in a lot of ways for the Department of Energy for tribes. But there's a lot of other offices that are doing great work that want to work with tribes, and we're just helping to build those kinds of connections. Again, our monthly webinars. We do have a listserv, and from what I understand, it's the largest listserv in the Indian country, over 20,000 subscribers for this. There could be other ones that are bigger. I just am trying to push it. But anything that we talk, any event, any funding opportunity from other offices, anything that we think that would be beneficial to tribal communities, we want to put out in that email newsletter. And so we have a couple that go out per week, it seems. All the projects that we have funded, there's comprehensive project reporting on our website. If you're thinking about doing some sort of solar battery thing, you can go onto our website, you can see what tribes have done it, and if you want to, you can reach out to the folks from that community to talk to them about it. But this is, you can see things that have happened since 2010 on here, including the final reports, which do talk a lot of times about the barriers and challenges, and so you can head off some of those things by looking at this. Some of the other things that we do, Congress required our office to submit a report on energy access and reliability. They wanted to know how many unelectrified homes were in Indian country and what the outage situation looked like. Those were the primary two pillars of this. There's other parts to it. This report is now published on our website. I will say that I'm happy it's published. So I got my PhD, and this felt like my doing a dissertation for a second one. So I'm just happy I could talk about like it's done. It was a lot of work. What was really interesting about this is the people who reviewed what I had written were DOE staff who hadn't worked with tribes. And so it was really interesting going through the comments like, why aren't you talking about Hawaii more? And, you know, a lot of different things that were just, I think, educational for a lot of people to actually read the report. We estimate there's about 17,000 tribal homes that do not have electricity, and that's about 54,000 people looking at census data for these communities. The energy burden, which is essentially income to energy cost ratio, is 28.3% higher than the average U.S. citizen, and power outages are experienced about 6.5 times more frequently than on non-tribal areas. This is an interesting thing. Within the whole United States, power outages are skyrocketing. I live in Colorado now. I had 2 outages on Saturday when the snow hit. But it's becoming more common across the nation with aging infrastructure, and in tribal communities, it's a lot more pronounced. And these types of outages aren't just seconds or minutes. Sometimes they're days, definitely hours, and it impacts tribal development, safety. I was at Hopi 2 weeks ago, and the power went out at the hotel. It was about 20 degrees outside, and it took about 15 minutes for it to get cold inside. And that's in a hotel, and there's people that are living without windows and things like that in that community. But I talked to the chairman. I was like, so this power outage, does it take out your gas station? It takes out everything. Their power is all connected, and everything goes out at once. And the big fear is someone will be in that hotel that needs a CPAC. And so there are things that we need to address in Indian community, in Indian country, that aren't being experienced in a lot of other parts of the country. So with funding resources, we have this on our website. We have our current funding opportunities. We also have listed other funding opportunities that we hear about. It's hard for us to know everything that goes on at DOE. There's like, I don't know, 5,000 employees. So if someone asked me today if I know someone at DOE, I probably don't. But there's a whole bunch of offices too, and so it's really hard to keep track of all that, and then across government-wide. And so whatever funding opportunity that we can find out, we're going to put on our website, we're going to put in our listserv. And we do include ongoing funding opportunities. And so these are ones that are like normally appropriated to offices, not part of Bill or IRA. And then we also have the past funding opportunities. Again, that's a great way to start. If we don't have an open funding opportunity, you can look at past ones and get an idea of what parts of the application you need and everything going forward. So right now we have $25 million grant opportunity for clean energy technology deployment on tribal lands. And so this is a notice of intent that we plan on releasing this funding opportunity. Typically between notice of intent to the release of the funding opportunity is a couple months, but we do plan to release this. Typically 1 to 2 grants per year. Now that we've got higher budget, that's going up. Something that would be very useful for folks that are thinking about applying for grants with the Office of Energy is a webinar. So it's not that Wednesday, it's Thursday, this coming week. And so we're having a few folks who have applied for and received grants with our office come in and have a discussion about that application process. So you can hear it from folks that are in your position. So we have the current funding opportunities. We have our infrastructure funding announcement here. There's also other websites out there that you can find funding on. This one here is the Intergovernmental Working Group on Coal and Power Plant Communities and Economic Revitalization. IWG is what everyone calls them, so you never hear that full name. They have a great clearinghouse of clearinghouse in their website of funding opportunities, and so it's energy communities. You can look that up. I think it's energycommunities.gov. I think that's their website. The Department of Interior also announced at the White House Tribal Nations Summit that there is a clearinghouse that they've created that the intent is to be a comprehensive one-stop shop for all funding, technical assistance that's available to tribes. Some of them it's not just for tribes, it's state, local, tribal. Things like that will be included in there as well. And what's great about that is they have staff that are pulling from all the different agencies the funding opportunities. It's going to take a while for that thing to be complete, and it's going to always have to be updated. But the Department of Interior Clearinghouse for funding opportunities is aiming to be the one-stop shop. We also have a few things, with our office and other offices that we would like to talk about within DOE. So there's Clean Energy Innovator Fellow, and so this is about supporting staff within communities to make sure that we're helping to build the next generation of leaders. And so if you want to hear more about this, I can give you information on that in the breaks. There's also a lot of other funding opportunities. And so I added these pages on Thursday. And our office puts out a weekly newsletter that includes these funding opportunities every week. We also put them on our website, I believe. And so if you're on our listserv, you will have seen these. But when we hear from other different offices, we want to support their programs as well. One thing that we always think about is if these funds don't get spent by tribes, are we going to see them again? And so the better that we do about doing outreach related to these things, the more that we can ensure that the money's going to the hands to the folks that are meant to serve. And so there's a lot of different funding opportunities that are out there, all different kinds. So you're looking at small-scale solar and battery, our office would be great for you. If you're looking at something really large, there might be another office that would be better grant-wise for that. But you can always come to our office for any support that you need. One great way to see the types of projects that our office funds is at our annual program review, which is always it's typically in November of the year. We just had ours this past year. And it's usually around 40 to 50 different presentations for a full week. And you hear from communities all across the lower 48 and Alaska talking about the projects, the impacts that they're having, the issues that they faced, and the successes that they've experienced through them. And so this is a great week for our office. It's our favorite week because we get to really hear about, work that we don't take credit for anything. Speaking for myself, I feel blessed to be able to be a part of this stuff. And so seeing all these community-led projects going on for a week is a pretty uplifting experience for me. Our office is having our Clean Energy Summit later this month in Pechanga in California, Temecula, California. I would encourage folks to look into this. It's on our website, February 27th to 28th. We do expect the secretary to be there. Jana will be our MC, which is pretty cool. The first plenary panel, which I'll be moderating, will be with chairwomen talking about their communities. And so we have a few days of programming planned, and the focus that we wanted was to make sure that we had tribal voices on the panels. We're not going to, there's going to be I'll have probably 10 minutes for a presentation like this, but we really want to hear from tribes, and we want them to share knowledge, and we can support. I'll go to this in just a second. I'm going to talk about some other things that are going on as well. The day before our Clean Energy Summit, there's a listening session about federal loan products for clean energy development. That will be at the casino the day before. So if there's anyone that wants to show up for that for a listening session, I can provide you the information for that. If this presentation isn't on your jump drive, which I don't think it will be, we can always get this to you as well. So again, registration February 16th, and room block ended last week. There's other things. Grid Deployment Office, they have a webinar. There's an application for some of their grid resilient funding. If you're interested in other offices like this, I think there's someone here from GDO that might be able to talk to you about this. But if not, a lot of offices around DOE are doing a lot of different types of things working with tribes, and we're just trying to get the information out. SCEP, there's a Tribal Home Energy Rebate Program. The allocation for tribes was $225 million. And this started this past year. This is going to provide funding for individual homes to have heat pumps, water pumps, circuit panel upgrades, things like this, up to $14,000 per household. And so this is going to be coming out soon. I think the allocation is most likely going to go to tribal governments and then be allocated from there. Another thing, we do have Facebook and Twitter. If one of you followed, we'd probably hear about it in our newsletter that we're getting increases. No, but no, we're starting to find that there's different folks around the country that like to receive information differently, and Facebook, in particular, there's some parts of the country where people are looking on there for their information, and they've let us know that. But also, we just want to be able to put success stories out there and things like that as well. And this is my final slide. You can always call our office, email our office, subscribe to our listserv, put a nice comment on our social media, something like that. I was in charge of DOE, the big DOE Instagram once for a panel I was on with Quanah Chasing Horse and the secretary. And the message, the stuff that people send, the federal government Instagram is insane. It's like you can't look. It's like it's like this isn't a bot. This is too personal. Yeah, so please follow us on there, and that's all I have for you today. And so thank you again to the Native Learning Center. I appreciate you putting this together. Thank you for having us here. It really is, like I said, a blessing to be a part of all this. And so thank you all for what you're doing in your communities, what you're doing to help support tribal communities. There's a lot of work, but there's a lot of funding out there right now. The Bill and IRA funding is once-in-a-generation funding, and we all need to work together to capitalize on that. But thank you all, and if there's any questions, I think I can take questions. Okay. So I think, there's some mechanisms already similar to 638. There's an EECBG program similar to that. We're not sure about really how this is playing out yet. We're meeting right now with the White House and other different agencies to see what we can do. Historically, for our office, we've had such a small budget, we wanted to make sure that we're funding projects that we know were going to come to fruition. And so the longer application process for our office, I feel like I agree, it's very difficult, long, but our success rate has been really high. And so with changing application standards and things like that, we'll have to see. I think with our higher budget, it allows for us to have more flexibility. But right now, there isn't like a list of these are the changes. This is how we're going to see this executive order played out. We're trying to figure that out right now. But I do like the idea of those kinds, and someone else brought that up today to me already. There's more than one way to skin a alligator. And so yeah, I think that kind of feedback would be helpful because that saves money on the federal side as well. And so I appreciate that, and I mean, I do work with the White House Council on Native American Affairs, and so whenever I hear feedback, I bring it to that committee so that we all know what we're hearing.
Yeah, one more back here. Go ahead.
So of the people in the United States that don't have electricity, 70% of the people that don't have electricity live on Navajo and Hopi's reservations. Is there any efforts being done to try to electrify those houses, considering they're probably the largest energy crisis in the United States right now?
Yes. There's particularly several different things going on, federal-wise, statewide, tribal-wise. For me, I am the lead for the Department of Energy for Navajo Nation and the Hopi Tribe. We have signed MOUs with both of them. At the White House Tribal Nations Summit in December, we got 8 agencies to sign on to support them. We do have it listed out in the MOU that there are significant unelectrified homes and things like that. And so with Navajo Nation, we did sign with them in December of 22 initially. And so we've been working with them over the past year, having in-person meetings, having team leads come together, and we are working with a grant writer with them, and they are applying for applications right now to resolve some of those issues. Hopi, we had our first meeting with them 2 weeks ago, so we're getting started in that process. But both of them, the thing that I like to point out with these MOUs, and the idea was these were coal communities that are transitioning away from historic industry that's helped the Southwest. We want to make sure that there's a just transition there. And so we've signed on with them. There might be another tribe that we'll work with. But energy was the door that we walked through to get to the MOU. And what I like to point out is, yes, there's tens of thousands of people without electricity, but there's also buildings that don't have wheelchair access. There's people who don't have water. There's a lot of other things that are going on in the community. And so what we were able to do was to bring together Navajo government, enterprises, the colleges, nonprofits, every sector of the economy of Navajo into the same room to talk about the future of Navajo. And that had never happened ever. They had not all been in the same room to talk to each other. And so when you have all these different groups, they have all their different interests, and we respect that they want to do things. And so, yes, we're looking at electrifying homes and buildings, but there's a lot of other things in the community that we're helping support too. And that's why having 8 different agencies sign on to it was so important, so that we can have folks from those offices provide support in other areas too. I mean, there's some places that have electricity but no water, and so that's what they're focusing on. And so we really are open to whatever they want, but we are actively connecting them with federal staff, providing them with grant writers and technical assistance so that we can solve these issues. And so we are working hand in hand with Navajo and Hopi on a daily basis.
Just a quick question. Are you going to have something about green hydrogen at the Tribal Summit?
I will have to look at the agenda and get back to you. I didn't create the agenda, so maybe, I don't know if Mike Stevenson, do you know if we have any green hydrogen discussions at the summit? Yeah, I can get back to you.
You know what? I'm sorry. My bad, Dr. Jones. We gotta get we gotta get moving here. You'll be around here for a little bit, right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yeah. So he'll be around. Just kind of sitting busy. I think he's got a kissing booth out there. You guys are going, but he'll be around. You guys have great questions. I know we gotta get moving. One more time. All right, Dr. Jones.